Right, we're live. Good. It always takes a while for people to arrive. Oh, some people are here. That's good. That's nice to see. Always good to see people. I was going to do a little bit of a monologue to start, just with um, uh, Donald Trump. A lot of people, a lot of commentators in the UK are talking about Trump, and they're reaching very quick decisions, and they're trying to paint him as category A or category B, or good or bad. And that's because our society is sort of broken down intellectually, where we are really in that bad spot where people are either, black or white, good or bad, Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker. It's all gone a bit childish. And they're trying to decide whether Donald Trump belongs in which category. I think Donald Trump is chaotic. So remember, if any of you have been following the podcast on equity, we had this idea of chaotic as being a characteristic. It can be good, it can be evil, it can be neutral, but it is certainly chaotic. He is definitely chaotic, which is why you won't find me ever commenting on Donald Trump, because within 24 hours your tweet is redundant. It belongs in the bin. Somebody mentioned, good evening, Sue. Somebody mentioned in the comments that Starmer had a love-in with him. Well, within 12 or 24 hours, that was all dead. So the whole thing was in the bin. And he's just attacked and massively criticised Putin. So all the people who rushed to say, they rushed to say he's a Putin apologist. It's like, he's just really annoyed. Putin thrown over to the walls. Trump is chaotic. So you won't find me commenting publicly on him. I don't think we should generally. I always try and advise people that they are our oldest and most, well, in practical terms, in legal terms, our oldest ally is Portugal, but pretty hard to argue that treaty has been consistently honoured. But they are certainly one of our oldest, if not our oldest. I think they probably are our oldest, most trustworthy. That's the most important bit. Most reliable allies. They gave their lives to help us when we needed it twice last century. We helped them in Korea, and we are one family, I think, the Anglosphere. So I wouldn't ever criticize any sitting US president of any type. But if anybody was curious why I'm not sort of joining the Trump mania, which I think is not doing terribly well for Dan Hodges, who I know and I've had drinks on the parliamentary terrace with. He's not evil. He's perfectly charming, but I think he's just jumping too quick. And Trump's just too unpredictable. How can you do this? Now, in the way of these things, after this, I'm going off to dinner with Jacob Rees-Mogg, so he can't be doing a show tonight, can he? Because he's having dinner. Can't be. But that's nice. Yesterday I was at Judy's, which is lovely, and Judy's had 7 black lab puppies and 4 blonde lab puppies. Not Judy herself. It's Belle who did the hard work. But I can tell you right now that nothing will change being in Judy's. She calls it the playroom. It's actually the indoor pool, but it's covered over, and she's just made it this perfect room for children. Being in that playroom with 11 Labrador puppies, I mean, that was just absolutely amazing. They were so cute. I am proud of myself that I did not adopt one, but they've all been taken now, so they're all gone anyway. So there's nothing. There was no chance of getting one of them. But Small would like a kitten for Small's birthday, and I've been researching whether or not cats can get on with beagles, for obvious reasons, but they all say that they can, and that the most important thing is just to provide a space where the cat can jump to if the beagle is irritating the cat. My idea of Heaven, Marie, yes, it was Heaven, and it was hilarious because it's a grown-up party, and Judy gave us all name badges, so that was always at Judy's. That's the indication that there are serious people here who don't know us. They're not, most of the regulars who don't need name badges. What's that for? And I got invited to Johnny Ball's book launch, which is nice. Johnny Ball he's lovely, utterly lovely, and has been spoiling Small for many years, but his wife is extremely lovely. I mean, she's just one of those people at a party that you absolutely gravitate towards and want to talk to. She's absolutely lovely. So she invited me. I'm trying to think of anything else to update you on, but we're mostly focused on the law. I think the questions were brilliant this week. So I think we covered most of the things that happened. I did a lot of media yesterday, and we'll get back to that. Oh, I'm sorry to hear your dog is deceased, Denise. But they got on. Yeah, I reckon Bella will get on well with the cat. I think the cat will need to tell Bella, I am boss. But I think the cat will do that quite well, and then Bells will just. I mean, she is very loving. The most exciting thing in the world is to go downstairs when she runs down the stairs and launches herself over the sofa like some sort of Exocet missile. And then the most exciting thing is to run all the way back up the stairs. She's a pretty, she's easygoing. She's going to get on with the cat. Right. Stop waffling, Stephen, particularly if we've got to get to dinner. It's not, although it's not, I'm not worried. We'll still have a full session. I'm not cutting anything short. James was the first. Hi, Stephen. Hope you're well. Your series on constitutional law is informative and useful. That's very kind. Once again, we're just being lovely. We're the lovely people. How nice. Oh, and I should do a shout out as well to paid subscribers. Free subscribers and paid subscribers are still going up, which is marvelous. Paid subscribers, you are the absolute heroes. You keep the whole show on the road. You make it more possible to do other things. So you are absolutely essential. It's becoming increasingly clear to me that a lot of our society just lies, and it's become. When did it become brave to say the truth? I mean, I just don't understand how we got here. I had lunch with a very long term friend who was just like, I just said, let's do a selfie. And he was just like, no. And it's because the idea is that it's clever to sort of just repeat the mantras, otherwise you'll get attacked. But the mantras are all rubbish. I mean, the mantras are nonsense. And this all's, it's all coming out in different ways. But I'm just going to stand with truth. And if that's courageous, then, well, I think we've all gone bonkers. David Starkey likes to quote Churchill that the only important virtue is courage, because without courage, everything else goes. And if they don't have the courage to speak up, and if it takes courage to say the truth, and I thought that's what barristers always did. I thought that was always our job. Anyway, I carry on saying the truth. Anyway, James, I waffled in the middle of your question. Is it worth touching upon dualism? Yes, I'll touch on dualism and the relationship with international law just later. What we're doing with the Constitution is just slowly establishing the basics. I want to think about whether we have finished with Parliament for now. We might return to Parliament for now in the future, but and then we'll do the courts. So it is all structured. And I think I want you to have Parliament first, not least of all to assert its superiority, to make it very clear that Parliament is the most important. And then we'll discuss the courts, and we'll discuss the courts pre-Blair and post-Blair, because there's a big change, and we'll get on to that. That's going to come up in this. But James is just another of the lovelies. What lovelies we are. Marie, Stephen, I'm really worried about starting World War III. Yes, I know, I get that. Everybody is scared of war. I have loved ones in the armed forces. I don't want anyone, whether British, Ukrainian or Russian, to lose any more sons, brothers, husbands, uncles. No more death. I know. I fear all of this is out of our hands, though. It certainly can't, the law can't do anything. What's funny and depressing at the same time is that Churchill gives a very witty speech in, I think, 1931, where he takes the mick out of international law. And he calls it's his George and the Dragon speech. If you put it into a search engine, Churchill, George and the Dragon speech. And you're always better with Churchill listening than reading. Much more fun. He'll make you giggle. But it's, given our age, when we live in this world where, the Attorney General is basically worshipping international law like it's some sort of god. It's terrifying that he was making this point just before World War II, and we are wherever we are. I mean, nobody wants World War III. We are where we are. What we have to do is stop being stupid and giving away strategically important islands and paying for the privilege. What we have to do is start looking after ourselves and increasing defence spend, not just spending, actually increasing defence. You can increase spending, but you can blow all the money. You need to send the generals over for a jolly in the Caribbean. We actually need to increase defence. We need more armed men. And we need to point this out as well. That women have fantastic roles in the military and many very successful women in the military, but when push comes to shove, we're going to need armed men with guns. Younger than me, probably, because I'd be useless anyway, but I think for my age, I'm pretty useless. Although I think Evelyn Waugh was conscripted at my age. But then again, I think he also wanted to fight, so it might have been different. I don't know how I'll feel. Yeah, it would be difficult. Jane, hi Stephen. Why are judges letting paedophiles go free after being found guilty? We all feel this, and I keep raising this. One of the best people in the world is Martin Daubney, because he just lets me rant about this almost every time I go on. But this is because of the Sentencing Council. We'll return to the Sentencing Council at later questions. But it's because the Sentencing Council decided that basically possession of paedophilic images means you go free. I think their logic is that there are so many awful men who do this, and it is mostly men. And there are also awful women who do this. We shouldn't downplay. But there are so many of them that the prisons would be chock full. But I'm afraid my answer is just good. I've got a young child. I went and read to the young children in small school. Good. Put them all away. Lock them all up, and the kids will be safer. I mean, that it is madness to me that we've got to this point. But there's a sort of idiocy that comes from a small group of elite governing. They start to believe their own mantras, and they think it's clever that paedophiles go free. And the rest of us are like, what? Yeah. Jane, how can the justice system be rebalanced so that justice is once again blind and fair for all? We just do it. We get a government willing to do it with a sufficient majority. We delete a load of laws, and then we make everything much, much clearer and simpler. Bish, bash, bosh. The reason that the Tories didn't do it for years is because lots of people just would freak out. I mean, they're like the people who try and look. So you're watching this, and I'm aware that there are people who watch this who are not necessarily my fans, although I do think they should get a life. But anyway, well, let's assume that you're my fan. There are people who think that I'm controversial. Middle-aged, bookish, Oxbridge educated, really controversial? What? In what way? I'm talking to you from my library, my dog's over there. I like puppies and children and kittens. What's the problem? We've gone mad, and we've gone mad because the elite think that they should try and please people, that you shouldn't say the truth. You should say things that don't cause the mob to scream at you. And if you're a member of the elite or close to it, and you say things that cause the mob to scream, well, then you have failed. And the screaming mob is your problem. It's not apparently the mob's fault. Not apparently their problem that the mob is screaming. That we mustn't hold the mob to account. They don't have to be in any way accountable for their actions. It's, oh my, look what you've done. You've kicked off the mob. This is victim blaming, and it's stupid. It's completely irrational. And I'm just not having it. I'm just going to stand with truth. And if that's controversial, well, loons. I'm going to stay in my library, stand with truth. Bish, bash, bosh. As long as we've got enough paying subscribers, we can stay here in the land of lovely and we'll be fine. No one will be able to touch us. And the madness can burn itself out. Alan. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Alan. Khan runs London like his own personal fiefdom. Are his powers absolute, or is there anything real Englishman or woman should clip his wings and remove him completely? So this raises 2 points. And one that I'm increasingly sort of irritated by, but they're trying to do it deliberately. As far as I can work out, they want a reaction. But there are certain people in our society who are denying that English is an ethnicity. And if you read my piece on Englishness, you know that I said that there are 3 types of Englishness. And what they're doing is classic switcheroo, where every time they sort of declare so-and-so is definitely English, they're just talking about one of the 3 types of English, which they are. But they're ignoring always, or belittling English as an ethnos. But that's just rude. It's just mean. So I don't know quite why well, I suspect they want the reaction, but I don't think it will be what they think it will be, because I think we'll just all react like the Dowager Countess and say, well, English is an ethnos, stop being silly, which is, I think, the best way to do it. Is there anything we do? No, his power is absolute. I mean, this is the point. You don't actually want a world where law can beat politics. You will all be better. We will all be freer if politics is the boss and law isn't. If law's the boss, then it falls to people like me, and that's fine if you like me. It won't take you 5 minutes to find a KC on Twitter that you hate. It really won't. They are obnoxious. When my mate Harry Cole at The Sun, I saw him tweet. There was a tweet going around saying which profession has damaged itself most by being on social media, and he just put barristers. It is sadly true. I mean, I couldn't believe it the day I had to block a fellow barrister, and now I've blocked like just go away. Just go away. I'm not. This is not how gentlemen behave. I mean, when I was called to the bar, I was so proud because we're literally published in the Times Court Circular as gentlemen. So I became a gentleman. My father likes to argue that I was already one because of Oxford, but I always think that was the time that I became a gentleman. I was published so I can. And my mate, who grew up similar to me, the same place, and similarly poor, his mum was a primary school teacher. So actually, I think they were a bit richer than us. But he always uses Esquire still every time he writes to me. He doesn't write Mister. He writes Steven Barrett Esquire because that's what a gentleman is. He's not a Mister. That matters to me. And then to see barristers behaving badly, just insane. So you don't want to give law power. You want to keep power in the political sphere where the majority can remain sane. There will always be an insane minority. You just don't want to allow them any way to manipulate or control the system. Samantha, I'm depressed. Oh dear. Two-tier. Yeah, and that's cut through. I mean, there isn't a pub I go into where people don't talk about two-tier. I've never seen cut through like this. It's like Boris level cut throughs, but it's not a good thing. So yeah, two-tier has cut through. So Samantha's run off to Sofia. Well, we all wish Samantha a lovely time in Sofia. And then Samantha did do a second post about Tommy. I mean, look, nobody's happy with what's going on with Tommy, but he is still going, and he will get out eventually. All of this will come out in the wash. I think it raises some very important questions. But at the moment, you're controversial if you even mention Tommy's name without throwing salt over his shoulder, spitting and turning around 3 times, which is what everybody in the elite does if they have to mention his name. In fact, they just call him Stephen Yaxley Lennon, which always strikes me as remarkably, not terribly polite. Because if we are gentlemen, and if he has changed his name, feels like we ought to. I mean, it's a bit like when everybody was being rude to George Osborne and they were calling him Gideon. And it's like, pretty sure you're just mean. I don't think that's nice. Anyway, Linda, Stephen, you have restored my faith in the law. Linda, you are a lovely. Welcome to our community. If you've been here for a while, it's just I haven't noticed because I'm rubbish, but welcome to the community. Marie, you had a lovely interchange about doing a Hillary, and it was hilarious. And then Hillary got involved in the altercation about doing a Hillary, and it was lovely to see because Hillary doesn't mind because Hillary's a grown-up, and grown-ups can tease each other without having to run away to file an official complaint and pretend that something awful has happened. So it was really lovely that doing a Hillary has become a thing, and as credit for Hillary, who is a good sport. Therefore, every time Hillary does a Hillary, I'm going to answer all the questions. That's just going to be us. It's going to be our thing. So Hillary's question this week, I'll mostly be asking. I watched all the Fast Show, and there's not enough of it. You go through it at a rate of knots on BBC iPlayer, but it's old comedy is one of the only good things on the iPlayer. Anyway, question 1: Frontier has declared boots on the ground. It's not going to happen, Hillary. The Barclays surrounding everyone around severely administered personal weapons. Yeah, exactly. That's not. We're not going to do conscription, although they have raised it, but we're not going to do it. What legal right does anyone have to fight it? Well, you can always ignore the draft. I mean, in Vietnam, famously, people did, and in World War II, people did, and it's one of the features of law is that sometimes you get conscientious objectors, and sometimes it's people think it's morally right to break the law. And that is very much a question for them. But there are not going to be boots on the ground in Ukraine. It would be a terrible, terrible risk if one of them got killed. Or certainly not. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. There won't be official British troops on the ground in Ukraine, because if one of them got killed, it would arguably invoke the NATO treaty, and we're all suddenly at war with Russia, and that's a problem. And if it didn't invoke the NATO treaty, that would be a terrible precedent. So he just doesn't think things through. I don't think he thinks anything through. It's like this stupid school toothbrushing nonsense, which, I mean, I've been a school governor for I did my 5-year term. I rose to be, chair of governors. I know that school. I know small school, how the hell are you going to get a bunch of kids brushing their teeth in a classroom? It's just insane. But he just doesn't think things through. They just announce stuff. It's very much a government of sort of vague fluff. And this will come up again when we get to Shabana Mahmood. And we'll talk about what went wrong and why it went wrong. Anyway, on with Hillary being Hillary. 30 NHS trusts signed up on the anti-racist scheme, which gives awards, bronze, silver and gold based on them fulfilling... Yeah, it's just communism, Hillary. It's just communism. Use race quota. Legalize racism against white folk. Yeah, I think it is. And I think we need to really call out all racism and stand with that. They want us to sort of, I don't know, but like when no racism is acceptable, we'll have absolutely zero racism. Thank you very much. That will include racism against white people. But I'm afraid I just think that all of this DEI stuff is classic communism. Remember, they're only one massacre away from paradise. Just one more massacre away. And Hillary's third question. Torbay and South Devon NHS recently mandated to all patients, male and female. Well, how would they know? Just I wonder if you can just break the NHS. But I think you go in and they ask you which whether you're male or female, and you just say, I don't know. What are they going to do? How are they going to deal with that? They'll probably have heart attacks and collapse. They just won't be able to deal with anything. Sorry, Hillary, I'm going to sidetrack. Attending for scans and must state their pregnancy status. Yes, one male patient refused to told he would be denied the scan. Oh, that is disgraceful. I think that probably is negligent. And I think I would have got a bit lawry. And the problem is that because the court system has been taken basically away from ordinary people, it's not practical for people to fight back, which really we must restore access to justice. It's something I'm going to start talking more about. But access to justice, the ability to use courts is really important, because if you can't use courts to protect you, what else have you got? And that's not fair. The state's got loads of weapons, and the state makes loads of mistakes, and the state's got loads of stupid employees who make, catastrophically stupid decisions, like that man didn't get his scan. And we need mechanisms of protecting the citizen. Sue and Catmint raised the same question, and then Nadine and Stephen all raised the question, and everybody got involved, and there was a discussion, and it was lovely to watch. And this is the prison sentencing guidelines, which Catmint, I think, very kindly put a picture of. Always go to the source. So for anybody watching this who doesn't know, this is the Sentencing Council, which is an independent quango, unaccountable quango, which has decided that you will get basically better treatment if you're a criminal, which is in the form of a pre-sentencing report, which will be full of lots of reasons why you shouldn't go to prison and you're actually lovely. Whereas without the report, you don't get that benefit. And it might even come up with suggestions for alternative punishments. But basically all you need to know is that it's an improvement on the sentencing position. It's better for you to have a report than not to have a report. I don't think any criminal barrister would dare contradict that. Although there are definitely criminal barristers who just would, because I've said something about being a criminal barrister, and they'll have some sort of narcissistic blowout loons. Anyway, let's read this. The pre-sentencing report will be available for people who are at risk of the first custodial sentence. Now, was that applied to Lucy Connolly and the tweeters around the riots? I think that's the first question about that. A young adult. Now, most of us, I think, probably think that's right, don't we? I mean, if somebody's 18 to 25, probably wants to see if there's something that can be done to stop developing a life of crime and maybe push them a different way. When I get more bonkers, I say things like we shouldn't send young offenders to Feltham, which is the young offenders institution. We should send them to Eton, because they'd get better life prospects. But that is rewarding criminality, so we shouldn't actually do that. But we should make sure that young people who are getting close to crime and a life of crime don't. So I think most people would probably agree with that. The next one I think is controversial, which is just female. So if you're a woman, you just get better treatment. Now, did Lucy Connolly get that? I mean, this is the problem. It's not just the rules; it's the inconsistent application of rules, which is a problem. We need to fight both. We need clearer rules, because then you have less inconsistency in application, because everybody can understand. If everybody understands what the rule is, it's really easy to spot when it's inconsistently applied. If you don't know what the rule is, or if it's so badly drafted that there is doubt, you get more inconsistent application. And I hate inconsistent application of law. It is itself an evil. It is a wrong. Anyway, I don't know whether women who commit crimes should be treated better than men who commit crimes. I am bisexual, so I'm not entirely. I've met good women and bad women, and good men and bad men, and I'm not entirely sure that I would. But I think it's a question for us, for all of us. And if you all disagree with me, then you win because you're the majority, and that's how democracy is. And we shake hands, and that's fine. I've actually started shaking Small's hand whenever Small loses at Uno or something. I want this all back. This just basic decency. Anyway, the female one I think is questionable. The one that really kicked off is the next one. You will get better treatment at sentencing if you are from an ethnic minority, cultural minority, and/or faith minority community. Right. So the glaringly obvious piece of bad drafting is, what on earth does cultural minority mean? Surely everybody can argue that somehow. Surely there must be some aspect of your political life or belief system that you can argue makes you a cultural minority. I am a massive Star Trek fan, my lord. It breaches my rights to watch Star Trek. I mean, what on earth does it mean? But everybody took that as meaning people like me, the same-sex attracted, or the letter soup. But I just think it's really badly written. And that's the other thing. This committee's got a Lord Justice of Appeal, the appeal court judge, and the Lady Chief Justice on, and they're producing badly written tosh. And that's what their pupil masters would have said to them 40, 50 years ago. So I'm only saying what their pupil masters would have said. They won't like it, but a faith minority community. This is the one that kicked off. It's obviously unfair. It's identity politics, and it's just wrong. And you all picked it up. You all had the reaction. Robert Jenrick was brilliant on this. So was Suella. I think she did something last night. Shabana Mahmood is a shrewd politician, so she noticed this is not going to be defensible. She tried to defend the line and say, well, I can't possibly influence the sentencing council. But as soon as she realised that her goose was cooked, she has now promised to, she's written to them, to get them to change it, or she'll abolish them. Really, we just need to abolish them, because they're making decisions that you should be making, that everybody in our democracy, all the voters should be making. We should respect voters, respect each other like we do here. We've all got different skill sets, different abilities, and that's fine. We just accept all of us as equals, and we make the decisions we make. The next bit, again, pregnant or postnatal. Now, see, I'm very sympathetic to pregnant and postnatal women, so I would be inclined to say that they should get a pre-sentencing report. But again, if the majority don't agree with me, that is democracy, and that's what we should be doing. These decisions should not be being made by a faceless committee who are committees are an awful way to do most things. But they certainly shouldn't be a faceless committee that's basically just going to go on vibes. And it's being raised, the idea that these came about because there is unfair treatment of black and minority ethnic offenders, and therefore we should extra punish white ones. That is the stupidest logic I've ever heard. If there is unfair treatment of black and ethnic minority criminals, then that needs to be fixed, and they need to be treated fairly. You don't need to hurt white people, because that's just insane. It's the logic of a lunatic. And the last one is sole or primary care for dependent relatives, which again I'm quite sympathetic to, but I wonder if you all are. I just want to make the only point I need to make is that it's our choice collectively. It's not any one of us's choice, and it's not for some faceless committee to act like. Basically, it's a weak bureaucratic dictatorship. They always collapse, often into strongman dictatorship, and I think we should just get democracy back. Petronella, the glamorous Petronella, whose husband had a lovely evening. We were all delighted to see. Hi, Stephen. Hope you're having a good week. I have a question around wills and estates. The current tax solution, is it worrying as even when another government takes charge after the G8, it's inevitable nothingness accidental government opposes will be repealed? Well, I don't know if it is inevitable nothing will be repealed, because I think we're getting to push is coming to shove. We have seen stagnation for decades. It just can't go on. Is it better to have a will dividing equally or in an estate where family get monthly increments? Oh, this looks very specific. So Petronella, why don't you drop me a message? And I won't give you advice because I think that would be unlawful, but I will recommend people either where you live or London based, and I can arrange across the sort of, I recommend people across the spectrum, so it doesn't need to be somebody ridiculously expensive. There are lots of good wills and probate practitioners, and I know this world, so I can probably find one closest to you. But if you're lucky, you'll live next to them, and if you're unlucky, it might be, the biggest town 50 miles away or whatever. But do that, because this is just looking too specific. Michelle, hi Stephen. How is it allowed by governments to campaign on certain issues, but once in power, backtrack on their promises? It's a recurring feature, this question. The Germans have done it. With the route to get rid of it. I muse about this question, and I think the solution is to not use law. But I think the old constitutional solution is that we got a right to petition the king. And I think it's pre the Bill of Rights, but it's definitely in the Bill of Rights. And we have the right, and that's transmuted or changed into being the right to petition Parliament, which I understand why that's right, although I think we've still retained the right to petition the king. I wouldn't say that anybody has lost that right, although we don't have an easy website on which to do it. We only have an easy website on which to petition Parliament. I think that both are an option. I think petition is the way the Constitution dealt with this problem. Because it's actually really important. If you have a deeply unpopular government that is massively irritating the people, you need to have either what I would call a constitutional pressure valve. So if anybody's got a pressure cooker, I took to pressure cooking when small was very little. Can't remember why now. I can't remember what I used to make. Was it ham? Anyway, I've got a pressure cooker. I barely use it now. But, if you think of a pressure cooker, it's got a little valve in it. Because if it doesn't have a little valve in it, what happens with the pressure cooker if the heat carries on? Well, what happens is pressure cooker go boom. Okay? And it explodes. And it is much better for a society to not have that, which is effectively revolution or, massive civil war and violence, and to simply instead have a constitutional pressure relief system, which avoids all of that happening. And I think ours is petition. It's not in the best of states, but this is why I encourage people, and I know Denise and Hillary and others are doing this, to talk to your MPs, and most importantly of all, arrange small groups. There's nothing like a small group of activists that an MP is more terrified of. You only need about 5 or 6, and they'll be terrified. And petition and keep on at them. If they ignore your first email, send more. They didn't not read it. They just hoped you'd go away. Okay? Constitutionally, that's what's going on. Your emails are read. Every email to an MP is read because they don't know what's in it. It could have something killer in it. So they're all read. So just because you don't get a response didn't mean that you were actually ignored. It just means they're hoping that you'll give in. So don't give in. If you want a free and democratic country, I'm afraid we have to do all this. It's a burden. Being in a dictatorship is easier, which may well be why lots of humans live in dictatorships. It's a lot less hassle. It just happens to be unfair, unfree, and often cruel and evil. So I'd much rather live in a democracy. Thank you very much. Catmint, again, Catmint's done a Hillary. Hi, Stephen. Just to add into my sister's point about the new sentencing guidelines, also seeing the DEI guidelines for solicitors. Yes, and again, this communism is coming for us. There is a proposal that barristers would have an active duty to spread DEI. I think that's what the solicitors have already succumbed to. They are just spreading this toxic political identity politics evil around. It's going to divide us all. And I think, I mean, the classic Marxist playbook is to try and cause a civil war. So, they probably want resentment. We've just got to get rid of all of this, get rid of all of it now, and stop being worried that people are going to call you a racist if you oppose DEI. We're not racists. Literally none of us are. Why would we? We're not insane. Yeah, I think you have to be irrational to be a racist, because it's an irrational belief. But our superpower has to be developing a thick skin where we just know that we're not racists. So we're just not even going to play this silly game anymore. We don't want to waste money on DEI, and it's communism. So go away, communist. And this is from a fellow Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Given the strict liability rules in Ryland and Fletcher, would the legal owners of the migrant hotels be directly liable for any damage caused by the migrants themselves should they cause trouble? Is the person who brings the puppet? I know what Ryland did. That's very kind of you to. I think it's interesting to argue Rylands. I think the Home Office is almost certainly liable for what they do, because they are ultimate custodian. I don't think the migrant hotels would be a good one to go after, although I've heard of a chain that's making a ridiculous amount of money every month. I mean, obscene amounts. We must seal our border. I know of no other cry. And Nigel Farage is going to be Prime Minister if no one else looks like they're going to seal the border, because it's just insane. It's like if my front door was open and people kept coming in, you have to close your front door. And it's cult-like behavior. Gad Saad calls it suicidal empathy. I'm looking forward to his new book on it. He's a professor over now in the States. He's a Canadian professor, very sane. I'll share a little tidbit with you, but my dad gets really angry at Jordan Peterson, and it's not for the reasons you might think. My dad got really angry because Jordan Peterson has become very, very, very famous and has sold millions of copies of books, and is, the world famous professor. And my dad's like, how is he so famous for just saying things that are obvious? My dad gets really huffy. It's not like my dad to get huffy. It's quite funny. I've only ever seen him angry while driving or discussing why Jordan Peterson is allowed to be famous for saying things that are just so obviously true. But it's true. I mean, this is right. This is like, why am I controversial? Now, I've got to the end of the questions, but we've got a bit more time, so I'm going to scroll up. But for damage, yes. Yeah, I think the Home Office isn't. I think more of us have to say this. Oh, Nadina lives in Telford. I'm sorry it's not good, Nadina. I mean, they don't really, because they just don't live like normal people. They don't. I experience normal life, which is, I think, and I deliberately never wanted to cut. Of course, I was at Judy's last night, which no one would claim is normal. That's bonkers. But I also go down spoons, and you've got to keep your hand in with experiencing actual normal life. I use trains, I use tube, I use buses. You've got to spend time, looking after normal life. Otherwise, you just become cut off. Marxism is a problem. Agree, Dave. The labels such as racist mean nothing anymore. Well, they don't mean anything. None of us are racist. Just doesn't mean anything. Catman's got a Hillary badge. Maybe we should make Hillary badges. Be more Hillary. I constantly think about tweeting out, judges, be more Mr. Justice Goose. But I would almost certainly get told off. I know our community is deeply affected by the government, but what do you think as a whole the country feels, in your opinion? Petition the King. Yeah, I think we are all upset. We are all frustrated. Parents are particularly worried. I have this tick. There's Smalls of an age where they're now allowed to walk home if they have parental permission. So I have not done that because I am mental, and I'm not going to do it next year either. Even if I let Small walk to school, I would stalk Small, because I just can't face the idea of anything happening to Small. But there's 3 or 4 girls whose mum and dad work very hard workers, so they walk home. But they've started, I noticed it the other day because we've just had some shopping to do. They've started not walking home and sort of slightly walking through the town centre. And that worries me. That's deeply upsetting, because if I felt the country was safe, I don't think I'd worry about that. But I don't feel the country is safe, and so I worry about those little girls. Just trying to look for an actual question. Just chatting nicely amongst yourselves. We really are lovely. Just so lovely. Yes. Now let me go to the bottom and see if anybody's done it. A quick one. Never let mine walk, even when the daughter was 15, 16. Sue, you are my living legend. I can be more Sue. It does worry me, Alan. What about a walking club? Well, I mean, the fact that all four of them are together is a bit better. But they should. Why are they walking? I know where they live. They shouldn't be walking through the town. It is not only is it not a direct route, it's downhill, so they have to go back uphill again. I just don't like it. Do not let small go to school. I know I won't. I won't. Right. Does anybody have a last question? Burning last question? Lovely attendance this week. And once again, shout out, thank you to all the paid subscribers. You make a huge difference. Oh, Marie. Thank you for what you wrote. Yes. Well, I wanted to deal with the death bill much more seriously. I really hate it. I might start calling her the angel of death. It's gone insane now. It's passed well beyond, we want to look after people who might be dying in pain, to we want to kill as many people as possible. And it's just awful. What do I make with the issues with reform? Well, I tend to take the view, because I am nominally of the right, that the right needs to stop attacking each other. So I'm going to stay silent politely on any reforms, any issues reform may or may not be having. What I want is to fix the country. I'm sure many of us have a part in that. And I think that needs to happen more than anything else. I don't mind telling you all, but, I'm working with David Starkey on his great repeal bill. I think we do need to fix things. It's if I didn't have small, I often wonder what I'd probably be doing. I'd probably be just at the bar ignoring all the problems like everybody else. But I have to accept the fact that I'm going to die one day and small won't have me around. So the country needs to be better. And the country needs to be safe. And what about Small's kids? Because I really want Small to have kids. I'm being a grandfather, whether Small likes it or not. We just need the country safe for kids. This is it's madness. I don't know how we've got here, but it's awful. Parent chaperone. Yeah, that's a nice idea. Sandra, I like your daughter. What's Sandra's daughter? Yes, I like Sandra's daughter too. David Starkey is, I missed that, is a brick and understands our heritage. He's marvellous and he's being much more active. He's touring the country with Mark. I mean, Mark, they don't go together, but he goes first and then a couple of weeks later, Mark Littlewood goes. And they're literally touring the country with this organisation, and they're just being marvellous, the two of them. I know both of them and they're both marvellous. David, I'm closer to, but that's just because he reminds me of my dad. Right, everybody. I think that's the end for this week. I'm going to try and do more content tomorrow and Sunday because I haven't done a constitutional episode and I haven't done an equity episode. And I think I have another story to say. And I haven't done anything with Andrew Eborn. I've been a bit distracted. So I need to get on top of things. There needs to be more content because particularly paid subscribers, that's what they pay for and that's what they deserve. There should also be free content, and there will be. I'll keep the Constitution podcast free. Right. Good. Right. I'm off to see Jacob. Sir Jacob. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Bye.